Our Super Mario Odyssey analysis is long. Really long. Like an hour and a half long. So in case you haven't had time to watch the entire thing, we're breaking it up into smaller parts for you to enjoy. And in this excerpt, we're going to take a close-up look at New Donk City and all of its weird connections to Donkey Kong Country. So let's dive on in. And what better place is there to start off than with a city level, which is not only how the trailer begins, but is also where a good portion of the action takes place. And there is a lot to cover here. I mean, we're going to be here for a while, so buckle up. Now, it doesn't take an analysis machine to point out that this city is pretty clearly based on New York City. I mean, between the manhole spewing steam, yellow cabs everywhere, and general downtown appearance, it's a dead ringer. Heck, there are even similar looking landmarks. That tower is pretty similar to the Empire State Building, and the bridge in the background is evocative of the Brooklyn Bridge. But despite the obvious similarities, this isn't actually New York City. It's New Donk City, as we can see that name plastered everywhere, including on signs, banners, and even the ground. Yeah, it's a weird name, and it's just a start to the rabbit hole of weirdness that is New Donk City. No, I'm not talking about you, rabbits. You're not even part of this level, so get out of here. We'll be dealing with you later. Okay, a lot later. Okay, so for starters, as we touched on earlier, this level is far more realistic than your typical Mario level. And as part of that, it features normally proportioned humans, which makes Mario, who's presumably also human, look a little bit freakish by comparison with his cartoonish appearance. I mean, have you seen how his nose now bounces around? So yeah, it's kinda weird to see real humans and Mario side by side. Is there an explanation for that? Like, are normal looking humans considered aliens to Mario? Kind of like that classic Twilight Zone episode where the beautiful woman is considered a freak? It gets even more bizarre when you consider the fact that Mario himself was originally said to be from New York City, even if that doesn't seem to be canon these days. But despite the humans looking realistic, there's something odd about them too. They're all dressed nearly identically and in 1950s style clothing. Or at least we think it's 1950s. We're GameXplain, not Clothing Explain, okay? No matter what year it is exactly, they're dressed in a very old fashion. Which is especially weird considering we can see a woman working on a laptop in the background, meaning it's the modern era. So I guess what's old is new again, right? Either that, or this is a city full of hipsters. And that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to weird stuff. Because in this clip, which offers a wonderful view of the city, we can see the entire thing is actually located far above the ground, with skyscrapers extending up to the clouds below. Even the streets end with a sudden drop-off. So what's going on here? Is there even more city below the clouds? And is the district we see here built on top of a giant building itself? And what's the point of the taxis if they can't even leave this little island? Although it is possible the roads may wrap around and continue down the side. So can the taxis escape gravity and just drive down the side to ground level? We're really not sure, but those corners do look like they might be a little rough on the old undercarriage. Now believe it or not, we're still not done with the strangeness. Because despite the realistic visual style, there's still a clear Mario influence here, such as how all the crosswalk signals are actually question blocks. Not only are they yellow cubes, but they even feature the question mark on the screen as a walk symbol. Or is that the don't walk symbol? You know, somehow I'm thinking a question mark may not be the best idea for a crosswalk signal. Although, seeing as they are based on question blocks, does anything happen if you hit them, like maybe changing the signal? And that's not the only Mario reference here, although we do say Mario loosely. Because let's take a closer look at some of those signs. Like the one here that says Diddy's Mart, which apparently is located on Dixie Street, which as it turns out happens to be this street right here based on the street sign. And that street is also home to Dixie Theater. Wait a second, Diddy and Dixie, as in the Kongs? And we're just getting started, because if we freeze the trailer at the very start, we can see a sign for Tiny's Piroshkis. Tiny being Tiny Kong from Donkey Kong 64. Who would have guessed that she'd enter the Russian pie business? Then right across the street is a sign that says Candy's Cafe, or at least we're pretty sure it says cafe, but it is covered up a bit. Now Candy of course refers to Candy Kong, which is a name we haven't heard in a very long time. And just in front of that is another sign for a shop called Banana Bagels. And of course, the Kongs do kind of have a thing for bananas. Then, right next to the Dixie Street sign is another for Cranky Street, as in Cranky Kong, and just across the way is one for Squawks Park, as in Squawks the Animal Buddy. And speaking of animal buddies, elsewhere in the city we can see a street sign for Espresso, the ostrich, as well as one for Rambi, the rhino. And right next to his is one for K. Rool, as in King K. Rool being the main villain of the Donkey Kong games. Huh. So between all these connections in Donkey Kong Country, we're pretty confident that Donk in New Donk City is short for the donkey in Donkey Kong. And to sell that idea even further, we can see red girders throughout the city, just like in the original Donkey Kong arcade game. And speaking of which, did you notice the license plates on the cabs all say 1981-ND? Now ND obviously stands for New Donk, but 1981 is the release year of that same Donkey Kong arcade game. So what the heck is going on here? Okay, now Donkey Kong has been a part of Mario ever since, well, the original Donkey Kong arcade game, which of course precedes even Mario's own games. But here's the thing, they've never really crossed paths again in the mainline Mario games until now. It's almost like the series has come full circle, except this time Donkey Kong's brought most of the whole DK crew with him, or at least references to them. So you might be asking yourself, what the heck is DK and the rest of the crew from Donkey Kong Country doing in a big city like this? Now of course we can't say for sure, but what we can say is this isn't DK's first time in a big city. It's easy to forget that Donkey Kong didn't get a start in the jungles of DK Island, but instead in the construction site of a literal big city, as made clear in the pseudo-remake Donkey Kong 94, where the first world is literally called Big City. And that city might have gone on to reappear in Donkey Kong Land the following year, but this time called Big Ape City. So could New Donk City possibly be the exact same city? Maybe, though the name would have had to have changed at some point. Either way, it's clear Donkey Kong has a bit of a history when it comes to cities. And the fact that New Donk City seems to be named after him strongly suggests Donkey Kong is a major influence here. So is he the mayor or something? And is this where the entire DK crew just hangs out now? Or is everything we talked about so far just a reference for the sake of being a reference? After all, outside of business names and signs, there's no evidence of any of the Kongs here at all. Which is pretty weird, right? Okay, I think that's quite enough about DK and the other Kongs for now. So let's talk about the city itself for a bit. And we can see that's basically a jungle gym for Mario, with him able to nimbly make his way around, effortlessly climbing buildings by jumping between them, clambering up light poles and flinging himself from streetlights, or carefully climbing across the ledge of a building. He can even use taxi cabs as mobile trampolines for a jump assist. The entire city really is just a giant play place for Mario, almost like he was born here. Take that, Yoshi's Island. And by the way, did you notice how the taxi's trunk and hood popped open briefly, exposing the engine and Mario bounced off of it? It's a neat touch. Although that cabbie is going to be pissed if insurance doesn't pick up the damage. At one point, we even see Mario long jump off the tower as a quick way of reaching the ground. And it's during that jump that we get an amazing and revealing view of the city, such as how we can see several of the buildings to the top right have rooftop gardens or parks on them. We can also see what looks to be blue tarps on several of the rooftops over here, as well as on the girders to either side of the city and on the ground over here, which we actually get a close-up look at in this scene, seemingly confirming that it is indeed a tarp. Can Mario maybe bounce off them too? Or are they hiding something underneath? Anyways, the view from up here is so good in fact that we were able to stitch together a picture that offers a nearly complete look at the city. So complete in fact that we can use it to map out where every single city scene takes place. But that's going to have to wait for our next segment. Or if you just can't wait, you can watch our analysis in its entirety right now. There's a link to it in the description below. Thanks for watching, and make sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already for more in Super Mario Odyssey and everything Nintendo Switch.